I would just like to welcome you to Scoops, to the book launch, Dr. Tanya Marie Robinson. I know most of you probably have been on the journeys with her, entered her life at some part or one of the other, but I'm so greatly privileged to have read up so much about this woman and into her driven life of dedicating her entire studies and her life into helping children and the children's education. I did make a few notes just so, because all the facts, just to get them right about her study. And now she is currently completing her third doctoral degree. I've heard your nickname is Doctor. So congratulations for that. On the false childhood allegations and sexual abuse allegations through divorce proceedings and the custody proceedings. And now she has published her fifth book, and I believe with one on the way, which she will greatly tell you about. And I would just like to, before we get to the author of The Silenced Child, I would just like to introduce her friend Nota, who's long-time friend and colleague, who will read an excerpt just on behalf of the UK, I believe it's called, sorry, I just learned this word, the Blue Ink. It's a UK book review, and the book was launched in the UK about a week ago. So congratulations, and Nota, if you wouldn't mind.
My name is Nota Leroy. I met Tanya about 14 years ago. We were both very young professionals at a medical center. I was doing optometry. I started my career as an optometrist, and I met Tanya there. We started a professional relationship that then turned into a very good friendship. She shares the horrendous hidden lives of many children who lack the voice to cry out about their pain and suffering. An expert in child mental health care in South Africa, Robinson is a specialist in children's assessments and family functioning. Some accounts delve into hidden sex abuse cases in wealthy demographic areas. With each story, she details the months and years it took her to make breakthroughs, such that just a tiny glimmer of trust from the child would give her chills. This vivid, raw, and haunting account of children caught in the crosshairs indeed gives voice to the voiceless, as Robinson intended. It's a clear-eyed, intimate peek behind a disturbing curtain of abusive family behaviors that offers no easy answers. Quiet as a mouse, because there are secrets at my house. I try to keep the secrets straight, like Bubby fell off his bike by the gate. Oh, and Sissy, she walked into a door, and there are many, many more. So all the secrets I can tell make my life a living hell. But shh, be quiet as a mouse, because there are secrets at my house. Thank you.
It's not a complicated book, and it's rather simplistically written, because the content of the book is obviously quite intense, and especially for people that don't work in the industry, in the field, it can be quite an emotional read, to read what children go through each day. I sometimes, just have to sort of pinch myself and sort of think, I have been given this opportunity to really help children that is in need of such great help. They need assistance, and they need to be heard, because you cannot believe how many kids in our society are not being heard and does not have a voice. And it was a very empowering journey to give those children an opportunity to tell their story that perhaps wouldn't have been heard. And for me, you think kids can't speak and they don't have opinions and they can't translate sort of what they feel. But I must say, in that specific study, it was amazing to see how important it is for children to have a voice. And it's interesting, even for me as a therapist, how I sometimes, as a mom, can also shush them down. And I must say, if I think one thing that I can learn from my husband is how he gives my children a voice. And I cannot think of one occasion where he's ever shushed them down. And I must say that is I'm very privileged to be in a household, and my children, where a man can take the responsibility to always be patient. Okay, what I would like to do is I would like to just sort of read a short passage out of a study, just to show you that, people think, oh, it's perhaps one child out of 1 million children, or, we don't know statistically really how many kids are being affected by abuse. But if you listen to this study, you'll see, but it is quite a bit of children that face horrible circumstances in their life. All right, so this was done. It's a violence against children and the consequences for South Africa. They said the Medical Research Council briefed the committee on the results of the investigation into violence against children and the effects on South African society. It was explained that violence included physical, emotional, and psychological violence, and that it could take the forms of child murders or homicide, sexual exploitation and trafficking, harmful traditional and cultural practices, child labor, bullying, and indirect violence, perpetrated in the home, the school, and community by adults and other children. Some of the events, such as infanticide or abandonment, generally occurred before the age of 1 year, but others, such as neglect or sexual abuse, spanned the full 17 years of childhood. I think what is important to say here is, and that is why I decided to do this PhD with Dr. Langba, is that, as you hear, often women are the perpetrators. And we still live in a culture where we always look at men and think it's the men that will hurt the children. But if I look in my study, it is interesting to see how manipulative and emotional abusive children, mothers can be towards children. We are now, at the moment, we are busy just to be in the good books of Dr. Langba. I'm busy doing the data analysis and that process to look at the transcripts of what came out of the interviews. And it is so interesting to see how often females, the mothers, create abuse and pretend that the children were abused by their fathers. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll do a bit of a reading out of the book. The reading that I'm going to do, and I really had to consider, what do I want to read? Because it is quite close to my heart, what I've put in the book. And for me, I could have taken any piece, and all the people's stories are important to me. But one of the stories that really touches my heart is a story that I did when I was busy with my master's degree. So I was fresh in the industry, and that was I just became sort of a social worker at that stage. So I was really in the field, and I had to take on this case. And I must say, this little girl's face has stayed with me forever. And sometimes when things don't work out the way that I think should have worked out, perhaps in a court case, or if I feel the child's needs are not being met, or if our voice are not being heard, I always think of this little girl that stands in front of me. And she gives me a lot of inspiration of just going on and to helping the children that need some help. So if you can just listen to this piece. By no stretch of the imagination can anything prepare one for this event. No theory and no practical experience can prepare you for a day when you have to tell a mother that she is not looking after her child, and that you, a total stranger, have the power to act and to take away her own flesh and blood. So what I prepared myself for and what I walked into that day were two totally different things. Can you please open the door? It's the social services. What do you want? I'm here to see your child. We had some complaints and need to come and speak to you and your husband about your child. We don't have a child here. Can you please just open the door? My supervisor asked again, ma'am, can you please open the door or we will have to get the police. The police are on their way. Stand back. The police are on their way. My supervisor forced the adults back into the house. All of a sudden, I was alone with what looked like a child, locked up in a dog kennel. I tried to make contact with the little girl, but she was frightened. Hello? Silence. Once more. Hello? Silence prevailed. The child looked at me with big, frightened eyes. I could not establish if she could understand me or if she could hear at all. Perhaps she was deaf. She looked no older than 4 years old, with brown eyes and brown hair that looked as if it had never seen water or soap. She was wearing shorts and a grey t-shirt that were filthy and dusty and reeked of feces and urine. As I grabbed onto her and picked her up, I wanted to vomit. I was so nauseous, and the awful smell crept deep into my nostrils, making me feel sick. I was silenced by this overwhelming moment in my life. My knees collapsed, and I sat with the bundle in my arms, holding her, too nauseous to speak or to utter a word. Silence. And it's important to process what we can do to change. So for me, every time and every child that I see and that I meet, and with every study that I do, I will try and help and really think of this child again, and that there might be other children like this. It is such a blessing to help other children and to help others, because that is the biggest privilege. But I also think that I owed it to this little person is to give the opportunity that we know her story. So that for me is very special, and I do feel privileged to say that she is now an adult and living a fulfilled life. Just to, also say something, he is from the Social Work and Social Development Department from UCT, and I think if he can just say something, it would be nice for me. Thank you. Thank you.
A very big achievement, and congratulations again. I remember when I was assigned to supervise Tanya. On our first meeting, I sat there, I've gone through her CV and her transcript, and I asked her, why do you want to do a third PhD? I only have one PhD, and that was enough. And in probably 2 minutes, she convinced me and justified why it's important to give voice to those dads who have been falsely accused of child sexual abuse. One of the things I admire about Tanya is how humble she is. With the 2 PhDs, we sit there and she still wants to learn. And she told me exactly that I came to UCT to do a third PhD because I really want to learn. I really need that evidence to advocate for children, to advocate for those dads out there whose lives have been shattered. I think when I entered here and look at the crowd, and I'm like, wow, I've been to a lot of book launches where you find, just friends and family members. But to see this crowd here, I think it speaks volumes about what you've done in the last 15 years working in this community and providing that support from a professional point of view. And kudos to you. Thank you very much.